I plan to have several types of substrate in this tank, but I don't want to be able to see the layers. The substrate should all be the same color. So I think the way to start would be to put what's going on top around the edge. Just the front and the right side. The left side won't be visible. Now, you're supposed to rinse this black diamond blasting sand before you use it in an aquarium. But that's going to be, it's going to make it real hard to work with. So just for the black grit, whatever it is, that's going in the front and on the side, I'm putting it in dry. Hopefully it won't contain too much dust. Next, I took what little potting soil I had left and mixed it with some dirt from my yard and then baked it in a pan or a cookie sheet. So it's hard as a rock. I'm going to have to add chunks of it here and there. Now for the main source of fertilizer in this tank, compost. I tried rinsing this stuff and I think it's going to make it very difficult to work with. You'll probably notice a few bugs flying around in the tank. That's from the compost. I've had the bucket of compost in my crawl space for months, and some sort of little gnats like to get in it. After this tank is full of water, it won't breed the gnats anymore. That'll be fine. That's about as far as I care to go with this stuff wet. Hopefully it'll be like fluoride black. Though it'll cloud the water initially, I believe eventually it'll clear up. I would prefer not to begin aquascaping yet because the water is not clear at this point. This tank has only had the water in it for a couple days, but these plants have been in alum solution for 2 days. From what I understand, that's how long it takes to kill both snails and snail eggs. And I don't want to leave the plants in any longer because it may kill them as well. And I'm hopeful that all my plants here are snail and snail egg free. I want to keep those pests out of this aquascape. The old standby water wisteria should grow tall, so I want to have it in the background here. Or this hardscape, how do I attach Java moss? Well, rather than tie it to these pieces of Malaysian driftwood, I think the best thing to do will be to just sort of wedge it into place, and as it grows it can latch onto the wood. There's a lovely hole right here. I wonder if I can get it in there. Maybe that'll stay. The flow of the hang on the back filter isn't too terribly strong. It's a Aquatic 10-20, and this is a 20-gallon tank. The tank has been set up for about 5 days, and as you can see, the water is still very cloudy using this black diamond blasting grit. You know what? Let's not add water wisteria to the front. Keep it in the background. However, previously when I used fluorite black for escape, as I recall, the tank was quite cloudy for at least a week, 10 days, and then rather suddenly it cleared up. So I'm still hopeful that that'll be the case with this stuff. It's actually called coal salt. Now that doesn't mean it has sodium chloride, it's just fine pieces of grit that come along with coal deposits, I suppose. I don't have a whole lot of dwarf Sagittarius, so I took a chance on one plant, soaked it in the alum solution for a couple of days, and I'm hopeful that this plant will bounce back, probably at least melt a little bit initially, but then the roots should be able to reach the rich substrate below, and I'm hopeful it'll come back and propagate in the tank. If it looks like it's doing well, I'll go ahead and move some more, but for now I'll just try the one. This tank has been set up for 3 weeks now. The water has cleared considerably. About a week ago, I did probably a 2/3 water change, and that's helped a lot. It's still very cloudy, but I believe it'll be crystal clear eventually. Planting in this black diamond blasting grit it's pretty good. It's certainly a lot easier than Fluval stratum. That stuff's so light it doesn't hold the plants down very well. Since the first dwarf Sagittaria did well in this tank for a couple of weeks, I'm going ahead and moving all of the dwarf Sagittaria from the 10-gallon bedroom tank into this tank. I have one other plant in another 10-gallon that's doing quite well. Don't like to put all of my eggs in one basket, so to speak, just in case all the plants in one tank should fail. But since the first dwarf Sagittaria liked this substrate, I think they all will. And I believe they'll look nice in this tank once the water clears. Off camera, I added my last pygmy chainsword to this tank, and it's been in here for about a week. I'm not sure yet if it's going to make it. It doesn't have much green left, but hopefully it'll make a comeback. As of today, this 20-gallon tall has been set up for 5 weeks. I took a sample of the water to my local pet store Wednesday, and the water tested out fine. It's always a high pH for the water around here, but ammonia, ammonium, nitrate, nitrite, all at 0. But to be safe, I took another sample of the water to the pet store this morning, today's Saturday, and had them tested again. Still all the bad stuff is at 0, so I went ahead and moved the first 2 inhabitants into the tank, 2 adult white cloud mountain minnows. They've been in the tank for several hours and they seem right at home. I don't want to overload the system by adding too many fish or shrimp at once, so I'll just add a couple at a time. Give the beneficial bacteria a chance to catch up with the bioload. I have 4 adult white cloud mountain minnows in the tank at this point. I'm just adding a couple at a time, every 3 or 4 days maybe, till I get all of the pets out of the 10-gallon in my bedroom, but in this tank. And these fish are super spoiled on live brine shrimp newply, and today I'm offering them some tiny Daphnia. Strained my Daphnia culture through a regular fish net, gave the adults to my Colombian tetra, and then I strained the smaller ones through a brine shrimp net. And as I expected, these white clouds are enjoying them. Here's a wide shot of the scape. The tank's been set up for about 7 weeks now. I've added all 7 adult white cloud mountain minnows to the tank. Quite pleased with this father fish style deep substrate with black diamond blasting grit used as a cap. I will say there is a bit of algae in the tank, and I'm not sure if that's because the driftwood had algae spores in it. I allowed it to dry out for a few weeks before using it, but perhaps those spores can dry out and then will propagate again once you add water. But hopefully the fast-growing water wisteria and java moss will outcompete algae for nutrients in the water column, and eventually I'll have a pretty low algae scape.